is proving itself to be resilient, and its resilience is credited to the unyielding commitment of the employees of the city in each department to assure that an efficient, innovative, and effective service is delivered to our citizens. In short, we have created a foundation on which to proceed. Our police, fire, and public works department are credited as being the most effective departments in the region. Certainly, as they will attest, each could use an infusion of millions of dollars in additional funding to do more. We're not doing that this year. If additional capital comes available as a result of a growing economy, they are each positioned to intelligently invest that capital in an efficient, innovative, and effective manner. The departmental budgets are ostensibly flat. There is a hole in this budget, however. The hole is our insurance line. Our insurance line is made up of property and casualty insurance, workers' compensation, and our health care benefits. 7 years ago, the public safety pensions were the greatest challenge to the ongoing fiscal operations of the city. Today, insurance presents a greater challenge than pensions were ever able to pose. 7 years ago, we had the legislature who was able to step in to help us resolve this problem. No such luck now. This is our problem. We have to own it, and in owning it, we have to resolve it. Today, our insurance costs are spiraling out of control with no current ability to accurately forecast our costs. It's the only expenditure that we seemingly have no solution to establish control. The reason is that we're having this difficulty is we are a self-insured entity, and subsequently we have a very small pool in which to spread our risk. 2 years ago, we evaluated the feasibility of becoming a private insurer. The cost then was prohibitive. The trail of costs to our self-insured obligations in essence required that we fund 2 separate insurance systems for a number of years, which made it cost prohibitive. Clearly, we need to establish a means to be able to more readily control those costs. Our department heads know very clearly what their budgets are and are held accountable to maintain their spending within their budgetary limits. This is their responsibility and their expectation. However, while the city has implemented wellness programs, established a more vibrant and dynamic safety program, and we have also rid ourselves of properties that created unmanageable risk, the insurance costs are continuing to spiral out of control. Our projections indicate that our insurance costs could easily increase 40% in the next year. In fact, when we look at our insurance costs that are projected, when we consider the last budget that some of us as City Council in the fiscal year 13 passed, if the projections are accurate, the insurance costs in that 5-year period of time, 4-year period of time, will have doubled. The coming weeks will be determining in how we address the ever-increasing expenditures in this line. We're going to be continuing our negotiations with our 3 bargaining units. And in turn, we'll be soliciting bids from prospective insurers. We built a strong partnership with our bargaining units, and the bargaining units certainly have a vested interest in assisting us in controlling all our insurance costs. They fully recognize that the protection of their jobs necessitate that we find an economical solution. A partnership works wonderfully in good times. The value of an effective partnership demonstrates its worth in difficult times. The stability of our fire, police, and public works departments depend upon our ability to identify an affordable solution to our insurance challenges. Other than insurance, our departments are effectively addressing our community challenges. Are all of our issues resolved? Well, of course not. However, each of these departments, inclusive of leadership along with rank and file, are engaged in a long-term path to resolution of complicated issues requiring complex responses. Many of our challenges are systemic in nature. Other than the insurance challenges, the changing economic structure of our city is certainly different than it was 50 years ago when our tax structure was created. A half century ago, we were a manufacturing center. Today, we're a regional health center and a burgeoning research center. We need to convene informed residents of every strata of our community to discuss in detail these ongoing issues. In November, I indicated my intention to convene a task force inclusive of our bargaining units, some council members, the business community, neighborhood representatives, clergy, and others to carefully assess these and other issues facing the city and ask them to bring forth a series of recommendations. We will be convening that task force in the coming weeks. My walks with the mayor last year in each of our neighborhoods were eye-opening. Certainly, each neighborhood has its own unique challenges. One point was made crystal clear, though. Every neighborhood, regardless of economic status, had crumbling sidewalks, as well as vacant buildings and unkempt property. You know, each of you were with me. Naturally, the problems were more pronounced in some areas than others. In every neighborhood, though, the owner-occupied property was practically pristine. People take care of their own property, take care of their homes. Rental property appeared to be the consistent challenge in each neighborhood. This council, each of you have already endorsed and authorized strategies to address each of these issues. This council took a bold step to create a fund for capital projects. Council's action enables us to fund within this budget a pilot project for neighborhood sidewalk replacement. As we ask each of you to provide us a proposed list of streets to be paved, we in turn are going to be asking you as council members to create a similar proposed list of sidewalks to be repaired or replaced. Council recently adopted a vacant buildings ordinance that will create a vacant building registry. The vacant building registry will enable us to more completely quantify the extent that vacant buildings are contributing to the decline in property values in our neighborhoods. Our Unsafe Buildings Commission has a list of 250 structures identified that need to be demolished. I'm told that there could easily be an additional 500 buildings placed on that list. The cost to demolish all the buildings on the unsafe buildings list would be well in excess of $2.5 million. Naturally, we don't have the resources to proceed at that pace. However, an anonymous donor has donated $100,000 to demolish buildings in the city, and we will match that donation with $100,000 from our capital budget. We have become known across the nation for our aggressive programs such as our Land Bank, our Unsafe Buildings Commission, our code enforcement efforts to address the presence of substandard and dilapidated buildings. Now that we have the vacant buildings registry ordinance on the books, it's necessary that we have all efforts coordinated into a common effort to systematically begin demolishing dilapidated buildings in every neighborhood. I've asked Tom Bell to coordinate that effort. The common phrase that we often hear is that all politics is local, and it rings true here. Our city is directly experiencing the effects of policies set forth in Washington, D.C. and Charleston. To an undisciplined eye, it can be argued that we virtually have no control over our own destiny. International markets and national policies are directly impacting our economy. This is certainly nothing new to our region because we can view our recent 30 to 40 year history and observe how long the long vacated industries have left our neighborhoods vacant and caused subsequent decline. Our state is experiencing a downturn in revenues due to a changing international energy market and a disruptive national energy policy. Coal and natural gas prices are reaching historic lows, and federal policy seeking to encourage the development of energy alternatives has been slow to recognize that energy-dependent regions have been left behind, and the people living in these regions are left to suffer the consequences. In the meantime, a changing healthcare economy is in turn in transition. Indeed, millions of individuals are at last receiving health benefits. However, the resulting increase in insurance costs is leaving in limbo every private and public enterprise attempting to balance its books and continue on a level course towards prosperity. While the issues we share with virtually every city in the state and nation are similar, we can learn from our past and forge a path not attempted elsewhere. Our response has been consistent these past 3 years. We will not be defined by the difficulties we face, but we will define our challenges and in that effort, discover our solutions. We can learn from our past and in doing so create a pathway for others to follow. We have been down this road before. While we lack the ability to change the past, we absolutely can determine our future. Our efforts are already beginning to sprout new seedlings. The opiate epidemic that is so devastating to the fabric of our community, our families, our neighborhoods, is being wrestled to the ground by every part of our community. All segments of our community have joined together to radically change the dialogue of addiction. Federal, state, and local agencies, businesses and labor unions, school systems and universities, medical schools and pharmacy schools, hospitals, health centers, health clinics, recovery programs, cities and counties, senators, congressmen, city councilwomen, county commissioners, faith-based groups, churches, synagogues, mosques, congregations, law enforcement agencies and courts, neighborhoods, children, grandparents, parents, families, all have come together in Huntington to radically fight addiction. All have come together to radically cooperate to save our community, state, and nation. Senator Shelley Moore Capito said simply yet strongly about this radical cooperation, quote, that Huntington's efforts to stem the drug epidemic should serve as a model for other cities. The Mayor's Office of Drug Control Policy has in less than a year assisted in the delivery in excess of $3 million of federal, state, private, public, and nonprofit agencies and grants to provide in-kind assistance to various agencies in the area to assist in the fight of the opiate epidemic. Rather than be defined by this epidemic, our city has instead defined the problem and now has a strategic means to conquer this enemy because of the Office of Drug Control Policy and the leadership of former Chief Jim Johnson, Deputy Fire Chief Jan Rader, and our Huntington Police Department analyst Scott Lemley. Because of the radical cooperation that they have led, lives are being saved. In turn, the city of Huntington has been a semifinalist in the America's Best Communities competition sponsored by Frontier Communications, one of 15 cities nationwide still standing in this competition. Our proposal represents a comprehensive effort that will not only transform our city to a level of success unseen in 70 years, but will prove to be transformative for the entire region. Our program is based on the very simple idea that a community can cause transformation by creating an environment of radical cooperation of all segments of the community, standing together, believing in one accord that our time is now. Our success will enable cities and communities throughout the region to unfurl the bridle of limited expectation and unleash the opportunity of anticipated prosperity by looking to each of these past instances, by looking to our past and each of these instances for the opiate epidemic, the ABC competition, looking to the past, we have learned not to idly accept the results that trickle down to us from national policies and international markets. We respond by aggressively and assertively working together. We respond by seeking solutions that are unique to our community so our community can respond with our unique answers. We respond by choosing to define our problem. We define ourselves by doing. We do by joining together in radical cooperation. In radical cooperation, this council and this administration have stood together when others have tried to shame us towards a fractured voice. In radical cooperation, these past 3 years, City Council and this administration have responded to the call that we hear. Oftentimes, we respond to a drumbeat that is not recognized by most because those who cannot hear the drumbeat have not had the temerity nor the spirit to act. In radical cooperation, this council and this administration had the courage to speak as one voice on 3 separate occasions to proclaim that all people living in our city will live in an environment of equal opportunity and free from discrimination and hatred. In radical cooperation, this council and this administration had the courage to speak in one single voice to assure that labor and business can and should work hand in hand, not as adversaries, but as community members with a common goal of prosperity for all. In radical cooperation, this council and this administration had the courage to speak on numerous occasions that we will not wait on Charleston or Washington to provide us declarations as to how to resolve our problems, but that we will determine our own destiny and create our resolutions to our challenges with a chorus of voices that ring out in a harmony unique to our own voice. As we exercise this community endeavor of radical cooperation, imagine the community and the destiny that we will have created when we realize that the number of overdoses are beginning to wane. When we see that the drug crimes are beginning to decline. When we recognize by standing together in radical cooperation against a common enemy that we have found a common ally, that we learned that we can trust one another, that we can trust the person who was once a stranger, that we have learned by trusting one another that we can create jobs together, that we have become a community standing together in common unity. Imagine then what we will be able to accomplish. All because we chose to engage one another in radical cooperation. In radical cooperation, this council and this administration have stood together. And in radical cooperation, this community will be defined by acting, by defining our enemy, by showing the world that we win when we stand together, not when we are driven apart. May the efforts that we place forth this coming year be worthy of the blessings of the Most High God, and may He continue to bless the citizens of our city and all who live in our region. Thank you.